What is good, guys? Got it on my hair, but just had to just wash my hair. That's why my hair's a little bit wet. Obviously I wanted to talk about yesterday's FA Cup final. Crystal Palace winning their first ever major trophy. Congratulations to them. You know, they've reached two previous FA Cup finals, one in 1990 and they lost. And then they reached the FA Cup final in 2016. They were playing us in the final and they lost. I remember that day well. I remember we went 1-0 up. Crystal Palace went 1-0 up. Jason Puncheon scored. I think we even had, I think if I remember correctly, we may have had a red card in that game as well. I think.
Sweet.
I think it was Fellaini who got sent off, if I remember correctly, or it might have actually been. I think it might have been Chris Smalling who was sent off in that game. For us in that final, obviously, when we scored the late equaliser, obviously thanks to one, I think it was one Matter.
What if the waters around us?
Scored the late equaliser, and then we got the winner from Jesse Lingard, and I think it was extra time. I mean, obviously, a huge result for Palace, and it's a result that means that Man City have gone trophyless this season. That was one thing I don't think anybody probably would have predicted before the season started. I don't think, anyone would have, before the season started, I don't think anyone would have looked at Man City and gone, they're not going to win they're not going to win a trophy this season. They're not going to be in a title race this season. I think so many things have happened this season that nobody would have predicted. Like, it's been one of the most crazy. It's been, the most crazy, spectacular, unbelievable season I've seen we've all seen for a very long time. Newcastle winning the Carabao Cup, Palace winning the FA Cup. They're now going to be in the Europa League next season, which is huge for them. I don't think they've ever been in a major European competition, so it's huge for them, to be in the Europa League next season. So congratulations to them. I can't be happier for them. That they've obviously won their first ever major trophy, their first ever trophy. Right to Newcastle for winning their trophy drought this season. That's the sort of thing that you love to see in football. Is teams either winning their first ever trophy or a team ending what was quite a long trophy drought that they've had to fight. They've fought so hard for so many years to end that trophy drought. I mean, I look at Crystal Palace. It's crazy to think they've now been in the Premier League for 12 years. It's funny because when they first came up to the Premier League 12 years ago, obviously they came up alongside Cardiff City and Fulham, who were both also promoted in 2013. I thought Crystal Palace would be one of three teams that went down that season. I didn't think they would stay up, but they did. You think about some of the managers they've had in their time. Alan Pardew, I think Sam Allardyce managed them at one point. Roy Hodgson has had multiple stints with them. They've had Patrick Vieira for one season. He didn't do, I think, one or two seasons. He didn't really do much with them. He didn't really achieve that much with them. But what I see, but Oliver Glasner, I think he hasn't done bad for Crystal Palace this season. I know they started off a bit shaky at the start of the season, but I think they've recovered it, sort of recovered well, and they're doing better. They have started to do a little bit better than they were, up until a certain point. They looked. They did look a bit shaky at the start of the season, Crystal Palace. They looked a bit nervous, but they've recovered, and they've turned it around, and the second half of the season they've looked really good, and I think they much deserved to win to win the FA Cup yesterday, as they played brilliantly in that game. I mean, obviously there's been, a lot of controversy surrounding the game yesterday. A lot of people saying that Dean Henderson shouldn't have even been on the field to save that penalty. He should have been sent off. I kind of see what they're getting at, obviously he handled the ball outside the penalty area, and normally, I think, was it a foul outside the penalty area, or was it a handball outside the penalty area? No, I mean, obviously, I think, a lot of Man City fans will feel that Dean Henderson should have been red-carded. I kind of feel like it's about time that Man City had a decision, had something go against them, because they get, the thing is with Man City, they get a lot of decisions go their way that they shouldn't get. They've had a lot of, decisions go their way that things go their way that they shouldn't have. So it's about time they had something go against them for once. I kind of feel like that's a little like that's karma in a way. The fact that they find, they've actually had something go against them, and that it wasn't the other, and that this, it was actually that, it wasn't the other way around this time. And another team being, Man City getting the decision that they shouldn't have had. This time, Man City have had something go against them. Palace had a decision that they shouldn't have had. So it's kind of karma in a way. I mean, when Palace went 1-0 up, I got a little bit excited, but then I sort of calmed myself down. I was like, there's still 45 minutes to go. Man City has still turned this round, and I thought they were going to. I thought they'd come out better in the second half and they would turn things around. Because they've done that there's been so many times this season where it's looked like Man City were going to lose. And then they've turned things around and won the game. Like they've either turned it around or won the game, somehow won the game late on. And that's what they do. I mean, for me, there was nothing wrong with the way the team played yesterday. But, massive respect to Palace for that title win, for that FA Cup win yesterday. I think this season Man City have really struggled without Rodri. I mean, you can see just how much of an impact that has on Man City when you take Rodri out of the team. Man City just crumbled. I think if Rodri hadn't gone out injured, maybe things would have been different. I think things would have been a lot different this season. Man City would still would have been in a title race and probably may even have won the title again this season. They would have got further in the Champions League. I honestly, they probably would have gotten to at least the quarterfinals or even the semi-finals of the Champions League. They may have won an FA Cup. They might have won the League Cup this season. Who knows what might have happened if Rodri hadn't gone out injured. There's no known. I mean, obviously Man City went out of the Champions League earlier than most expected. They didn't even make it past the playoffs. I mean, at least Liverpool can say they got one step further than them. They got to the round of 16, which Man City didn't even get that far. They went out. They've been in 3 straight FA Cup finals and won one of them. They beat us in the FA Cup final in 2023. They lost to us in the FA Cup final last season, and they've lost another FA Cup final this season. This time to Crystal Palace, a team who I do think would have been considered the underdogs. I didn't think they were going to beat Villa. They did. I didn't think they beat Man City. They did. Crystal Palace. This is a truly, truly historical moment for them as a club, and they absolutely deserve to enjoy this moment and celebrate this moment, and in the way, and they deserve to be so proud of this achievement, and at how far they've come over the last 12 years since they came back up to the Premier League, and here they are 12 years later celebrating winning their first ever, trophy. And that also means that Palace are going to be in the going to be in the Community Shield next season. It will be a Crystal Palace versus Liverpool Community Shield game, which will be interesting to see. Palace, massive respect to them. I mean, obviously, United have been shit this season. I'm not gonna, deny that. But it has been kind of enjoyable to watch Man City kind of falling apart this season. They are the true definition of a one-man team. They constantly get decisions, they constantly fall apart when they have fallen apart. Now that Rodri's been taken... Lady! Now that Rodri's kind of been taken out of the team. obviously, and obviously they've lost him to injury this season. It's been a major flop for them. You know, as I said, I don't think anybody would have predicted that Man City not being in the title race this season. I think, you know, it is shocking the fact that Man City didn't, you know, haven't won a trophy this season. You know, they've done a whole, you know, the last time that happened was Pep Guardiola's first season in charge, which was the 2016-17 season, I remember. And I remember that season, Chelsea won the FA Cup. We won the Carabao Cup. No, Chelsea won the Premier League. I think, was it Arsenal that won the FA Cup that season? I know that we won the Carabao Cup that season. I can't remember who it was. I can't actually remember who it was that won the FA Cup that season. I think that might be, I know it was either Chelsea or Arsenal, but I can't remember which one of them it was that won the FA Cup final that season. I'm thinking it was Arsenal that won it. And it was an Arsenal, I mean, was it actually, I mean, FA Cup final, 2017. 2017 FA Cup final. Yeah, so it was an Arsenal FA Cup final. It was Arsenal Chelsea in the in the Community Shield the following season. I remember now. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that, you know, that City didn't win a trophy this season. I don't think everybody would have predicted that. You know, what a season it's been. Like, it's been the craziest season I've ever seen. And I think it's one that won't be forgotten in a hurry. But it's one that I'm sure Man City players will want to forget. But I think they will bounce back next season. They'll be back on fire next season. They'll have Rodri back. They'll make a few signings in the summer as well. They'll probably be back to where they should be next season. And I'm there for it. Hopefully they do. Hopefully things go better for them next season. We shall see. I hope you enjoyed this video anyway. I'll see you for another one soon. Bye bye. What would happen if Lionel